FutureSkills Prime is a digital skilling initiative brought to all Indian citizens from the Ministry of IT, Government of India, and NASSCOM, the Industry Association for IT. Has the vision of making India the global FutureSkills Prime is emerging technology initiative with India's $1 trillion digital opportunity side. There is a need to build NASSCOM, the Industry Association for IT, across all industries and sectors. Vision of making India the content of FutureSkills Prime ranges from short, it's India's $1 trillion awareness digital pathways to complete courses that have been defined by industry and curriculum that is approved by government, aligned to government standards. FutureSkills Prime ranges. The platform uses cutting-edge tools like badges, certifications, gamification, and incentives to constantly motivate the learner. FutureSkills Prime has content especially designed for novices who are just beginning their digital journey and professionals who want to apply in their job. The FutureSkills Prime ecosystem demonstrates India's ambition to leap into the digital future with technologies at the core of everything. An affordable and credible ecosystem created through a public-private partnership of government and industry. It seeks to be at the forefront of the reskilling revolution necessary to make India the talent nation for digital tech. And so take the lead and join in this revolution and start learning today. FutureSkills Prime is a digital skilling initiative brought to all Indian citizens by the Ministry of IT, Government of India, and NASSCOM, the Industry Association for IT. It has a lofty vision of making India the global talent in emerging technology. With India's $1 trillion digital opportunity, there is a need to build NASSCOM to Indian capability across all industries and sectors. Content on FutureSkills Prime ranges from short, expert awareness in digital pathways to complete courses that have been defined by industry and curriculum approved by aligned to government standards. The platform uses cutting-edge tools like badges, certification, gamification, and incentives to constantly motivate the learner. And FutureSkills Prime has content especially designed for novices who are just beginning their digital journey and professionals who want to apply in their job. The FutureSkills Prime ecosystem demonstrates India's ambition to leap into the digital future with technologies at the core of everything. An affordable and credible ecosystem created through a public-private partnership of government and industry. It seeks to be at the forefront of the reskilling revolution necessary to make India the talent nation for digital tech. And so take the lead and join in this revolution and start learning today.
Hello and a very good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Anushri Mittal from NASSCOM FutureSkills team. I welcome you all to today's bootcamp on full stack web development by FutureSkills Prime in association with Coding Ninja. As of January 2020, websites crossed 17.4 billion with an increasing number of businesses investing in websites. Apart from that, the rise of a web as a platform has inspired businesses to shift online completely. From e-commerce, banking, real estate and software, to service industries, education and healthcare, everything now resides on the web. Startups or businesses want web applications which can provide services by analyzing their audience to gain trust and increase leads by increasing the user experience of their clients. Hence, full stack developers has emerged as the hottest profession of 2021. There has been an increase of over 30% demand for full stack developer jobs in India in last 1 year. This bootcamp will give you a sneak peek into what it takes to be a full stack developer. In the next 90 minutes, you will be able to build a bucket list app in MERN stack. You will be able to add, delete, update items to your bucket list. Let me introduce you to our speaker for today, Mr. Aakash Tyagi, who is a software engineer. He is a passionate software developer by heart and holds expertise in JavaScript and React frontend, and has worked on great open source projects like Firebug and Zulip, and served as GCI, Google Code Inventor with Zero. In his previous roles in the past 3 years as a software engineer, he has worked with startups and established players like IBM and MeitY. In case if you have any questions, audience, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section and we will get back to you. Over to you, Aakash.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Anushri. So, hi everyone. I hope everyone is doing very well right now. So, I hope everyone is all excited to build the bucket list application as well. Um, just a second, guys. I think okay. So hi everyone. I hope everyone is able to hear me as well as see me. So in today's session, we'll be building a bucket list application using MERN stack, right? And we'll be talking about what will be building in the MERN stack application, what will be the features, and how to build scalable applications and things like that, right? But before moving on, I just want to share with you the course that this particular session is basically based upon, right? So let me just share my screen first of all. And please let me know on the chat, guys, if you can see my screen. Is everyone able to see my screen? Okay, awesome, guys. So, guys, this session is basically just a very small glimpse of what this particular course has to offer, right? So, our team will basically share the URL for this course as well on the chat itself, so you can get the link from there, right? So, this is the course foundation of full stack web development with Node.js, right? I'll just basically tell you brief about what this course offers to you and what all applications you can make through this course, and then what are technologies that you will be learning through this course, right? So let me just quickly run through the projects that you will be building, right? So here in the description, you can see that we'll be building a mini calculator project, a chat application, a social networking website, a music player, and a to-do list application, and basically a very good chatting engine that you'll basically learn about sockets and how messaging basically works over the internet, right? These are some cool projects that you will basically be building throughout the course, right? And the one good thing that it actually offers you is like once you're done with the projects, right, and throughout the course, what you can actually do is you can use the AWS credits that is offered by the course. We have 5,000 INR worth of AWS credits, and you can use those credits to deploy your application and showcase it to the world as well, right? So deployment is very crucial once you're building a project, right? If you deploy that particular application and then you can share it to the public as well, right? So it can come in handy over there. And the curriculum, talking about the curriculum, guys, will be starting from HTML and CSS. Even though if you know a little bit of HTML and CSS, that does not matter because we teach a lot of concepts that you might not even have heard of, right? So we'll be starting with HTML and CSS, then we'll be moving on to JavaScript, where we learn all the concepts of JavaScript, like objects, prototype system, closures, how this works in JavaScript, and things like that, right? So you'll get the whole understanding of JavaScript. So once that's done, right, after that, you'll basically be able to move on to the backend part. So you'll be able to learn how you can build scalable backends using the JavaScript language itself. So we teach Node.js and Express.js. These two are basically frameworks, runtime environments for your JavaScript applications. And using this, you can build pretty much any application that you basically want, right? So it's a very useful technology and it's a very popular technology nowadays, Node.js and Express, right? And don't worry if you don't know anything about it, we'll learn a few things in this session itself, right? Okay, and one more thing that you will get to learn is through the whole course, you'll get to learn all of these technologies, right? Not only Node.js, you'll also be able to learn how we can store data in the database itself, how we can fetch data, how we can manipulate data in a database called as MongoDB, right? And we'll talk about more about that in this particular session itself, right? And one more thing that I want to mention is throughout this course, you'll get the doubt support, wherein if you're stuck anywhere in the anywhere throughout the course. You can just raise a doubt, and that doubt will be solved within 2 to 4 hours, right? You can basically chat with our TAs throughout our course, and you can raise the doubt anytime, right? So doubt facility is available to you throughout the course duration, right? This is a very plus point to have. If you are stuck anywhere, basically anything, you can just chat with a TA and get to solve your doubts, right? Very quickly as well, right? Awesome. And after you complete the course, you'll also be getting a certificate, which is offered by NASSCOM FutureSkills Prime in partnership with Coding Ninjas as well, right? So you'll definitely get a certificate as well after you complete the course, right? So just go through this particular link. We definitely have shared the link in the chat, and click on apply now. And when you click on apply now, this particular page will open, and from here you can basically start enrolling yourself in this particular course, right? So guys, we'll be discussing about a very small piece of what we actually teach in the course, right? So this particular link should be shared by our team members on the chat itself. So just have a look out in the chat, guys. Okay. So we'll get the link. And okay, so guys, I think let's start the webinar. Let's start the bootcamp now. And let me just quickly share the slides first. Okay. Awesome. So what we'll be building today, right? So we'll be building a very cool bucket list application, right? And we'll be building it using the MERN stack, guys. So what is MERN stack? So MERN stack, in MERN stack, you can see there's an M, which basically stands for MongoDB. So we'll be using our database called as MongoDB. So it's a NoSQL database, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on, but we'll be using MongoDB to store our data, right? Such that it is persistent, right? And obviously MongoDB is free, right? At least we can use the free tier version for our testing purposes and creating our development apps, right? And next we'll be using is the Express framework, right? This is basically a framework which is used in combination with Node.js, right? So what is Node.js? So Node.js is basically just a runtime environment for your JavaScript applications, right? So for example, if you have seen in your browsers, you have a browser console over there, right, guys? So in console, you can actually type JavaScript. You can actually work with JavaScript, right? You can write JavaScript programs in your web browser, right? So that particular browser console is actually a runtime environment for your JavaScript language, right? So similar to that, we have Node.js as well, which we can run on our servers, right? So we'll talk about Node.js and Express later on, how to set up and things like that, right? And the next part is the React part, which is like becoming very popular nowadays. A lot of big companies are using React. Facebook, Flipkart, Airbnb, Uber, you name it. Almost a lot of companies, top companies, are using React, right? It's a very popular framework. So we'll be seeing also that how we can actually connect the application, the Node.js application, with our React library, right? Okay, so let's go to the next slide, which is we'll talk about single page applications versus multi-page applications before even diving into code first, right? So what is single page application? So let me just show it to you firsthand. So if you go to codingninjas.com, right, you will get to, let me just load the application first. Yeah. So here's this codingninjas.com, right? This is essentially a single page application, right? And what do I mean by single page application? In a single page application that you build using React or Angular or Vue or basically any such library or framework, what happens is you're only serving one single page in the website, right? So this codingninjas.com only has one index.html page. That is it. You don't have multiple HTML pages, right? So this is only one HTML page, one index.html page, that is it, right? And so what happens when you click on it, right? So click on something, right? So let's click on a particular course. Let's say I click on this particular course, right? Here you can see on the top hand my URL changes, right? And also the content changes, right? The URL as well as the content changes, right? So you must be assuming, or if you don't know about single page application, you might be thinking that this is another page, right? This is another HTML page, the content of the index.html page via JavaScript, right? So generally what you see is once you come at the home page, you will see this particular page, right? And as you navigate to another link, all of this magic is being done by React itself, right? If you in Coding Ninja's case, we'll be using we are using Angular, so it's done by Angular, right? All of this routing, changing of the URL, changing of the images, changing of the data, and things like that is done by Angular or React or whatever framework library you are using, right? And the third thing, if you can also see that once I navigate to a page, my page is not refreshing, right? So this is what a single page application basically is. Our page does not get refreshed and content changes with JavaScript, right? This is one example of single page application. Let's jump to multi-page application. What is a multi-page application? As the name suggests, in a multi-page application, you have multiple HTML pages, right? And just keep an eye on this loader on the left-hand side, right? So once I click on a particular page, it should get reloaded, right? So my page reloads and a new HTML, brand new HTML page is being served to me, right? So as I'm basically navigating throughout the website, my whole page is getting re-rendered, it's getting refreshed, right? Because we're making a call to the server and server gives me a new page, right? So this is a brand new page. So each and every page is basically a brand new page in a multi-page application, right? This is a basic difference between a single page application as well as a multi-page application. So frameworks and libraries like React, Angular, and Vue are majorly used for building single page applications. Although you can use these frameworks and libraries to build multi-page apps as well, but that's out of today's discussion, right? So this is an example of multi-page application, and yep. So this is what single page application and multi-page application basically means, right? So then how do the single page application gets data, right? If it is not getting refreshed, if it does not ask for a new page from the server, then how does it get data? It basically gets data via APIs, right? So it basically stands for Application Programming Interface. So what is an API? API is basically just a technique wherein you get some data from the server, right? It's as simple as that, right? So you make a call to a server and you ask for some particular data, right? So let's say we are asking for users data. So we get the users data in the form of JSON, right? So JSON is basically, we'll see what JSON exactly is and how it looks like, right? So we'll definitely see and have a look into that as well. So this is just a basic intro of APIs, right? It's as simple as that, right? So instead of asking the HTML page from the server, what you do is just make a request to ask some JSON data from the server. You get the data, and using JavaScript, you can populate or manipulate the HTML pages on front end side, right? This is generally what APIs are helpful for. Don't worry, we'll definitely share all the resources. I'm just coming into that. So just wait for a second, right? So next, what we will be doing today, right? We'll be building a bucket list application, right? So we'll be setting up a Node and Express server, right? So we'll see, we talked about Node and Express, right? Earlier in the very first slide, right? So we'll definitely be talking about how we can set up a Node and Express server. And then we'll be seeing how we can connect a server to the MongoDB database and how it stores data and things like that, right? And then we'll also be using another framework or Mongoose, right, which is basically used to connect with MongoDB, right? So you can either use MongoDB, which is a database, directly into your application, or you can use Mongoose to manipulate MongoDB, right? Because Mongoose gives us a lot of easy functionalities, and if you go to the MongoDB documentation, it is kind of hard for beginners, right? So that's why we use Mongoose. It's kind of a driver. It sits in between you writing the logic and the database, right? So you tell Mongoose that, hey, I want to create a user. I want to get a user details, right? And it basically then makes the MongoDB commands, necessary MongoDB commands, right? So just like you have SQL, right? SQL-based database, and you have to write SQL commands. So here we'll be using Mongoose to write and work with MongoDB, right? And then at the end, we'll basically be learning how to work with React and Node.js APIs, right? So guys, before further ado, let's just quickly jump into coding first, right? And guys, this is a URL. Please visit this URL and you'll be able to quickly set up the repository that I will be using, the code base that I will be using, right? Just quickly go to this particular URL if you are coding along, and I'll basically encourage you to code along with me, right? So this link will also be provided in the chat. So just open this particular link and it will take you to this GitHub page, right? repo. This is the repo bucket list app. And even after the session ends, you'll get all the code over here, right? So all the code and everything is in this particular repo, right? Just get it, right? And how do you get it? Either you can click on this code button, you can just download the zip, right? You can download zip and you can just start coding along with me. Or you can do is you can clone this repo, right? Which I'll be doing right now. Anyways, so all of the information will taught in this session will be there in this particular repo, right? Uh, okay, so this link will be there. Uh, Let me also just share the link. So guys, I just shared the link on the chat as well. Just click on the link, just visit the link, and we'll start the coding session, right? So you can just follow along. I just copy the link and I'll clone this repo onto my desktop, right? So I'll clone the repo. So let's just navigate to desktop and just let me know if the font size is not visible, right? I'll just increase the font size as well. Okay. So all you have to do is you have to do git clone and just whatever the URL it is, right? So just open it and it will just give you the bucket list app folder on your desktop or wherever you're cloning it, right? So I'll just navigate into it and awesome. And you can see it has only two things, uh, readme as well as resources, right? So guys, what we'll be doing is we will basically be creating two things, right? First is the React part. The second is the Node.js part, right? The backend part. So let's quickly do one thing. Let's just create our server first, right? So I'll do mkdir server, right? So it will basically create the server folder for me, right? By the way, guys, I'll just be pushing each and everything onto this repository, right? This particular repo, right? Once I've done with a particular piece of code, I'll push it over here. You can just clone it again, right? This particular repo, or you can just pull from this branch, right? Main branch, if you know about Git, right? Or you can just quickly download zip from here. That's also a quick way to do it, right? Anyways, so I have basically created a server folder inside my bucket list application. I'll go inside it and I will open my code editor, which is I'm using VS Code. You can basically use anything you want, Sublime or basically anything you want, right? You can totally do that. So, okay, just a second, guys. So let me just make it full screen. Okay, so I have the server, right? Okay, so let's just go back and open the whole thing, or I think server is fine. Okay, so let's first create, guys, index.js file, right? New file, index.js. So this will be our main entry point of our application, right? And also what we'll do is, so once you're on the server directory, right? Once you're in the server directory, you just have to do this one command, npm init minus y, right? So what it will do is it will initialize an npm package for you guys in this server folder, right? So once that is done, here you can see now I have this package.json file, right? I have this package.json file that basically means that I can now download node modules for my folder, right? For my whole project. So let's just go back and open this instead of the server directory, right? I have to do a few things as well. And guys, don't worry, I just add all of these steps into README as well over here. Once I pushed it into the repo, you can just see all the steps over here, right? So don't worry about that as well. Okay. So here I have the README. I'll update the steps here as well, so that you will be able to work along with me, right? So you'll just do mkdir server, right? You'll go into the server, and here you'll basically do npm init minus y. So this is for initializing server, right? We'll talk about React also in a bit. Okay, so that is fine. And here I have index.js as well, right? So let me just quickly commit this. I'll push it into my repo, right? So you can guys can see it over there. Okay. Okay, so okay. Just a second, guys. I'm just changing my email so that I'm able to push correctly. Okay. We'll do git status, we'll do git add, we'll say git commit -m add server, git push origin main, right? So once I pushed, you can now basically see this on my repo, right? Let's go to the repo, refresh, and you should be able to see. Yep. So here we have steps: initializing server, mkdi server, cd server, and you can just pull from main branch, and you'll get all these things over here, right? All of the code will be in this particular directory, and I'll be just putting each and everything inside this directory, right? So just use this code also. Okay, awesome. So we have the server, right? So let's quickly install some packages that we'll require, right? So inside the server repo itself, I'll do npm init, npm I. I'll be needing NodeMon. I'll be needing Express that we'll be using. I'll be using Mongoose. I'll be using MongoDB as well, right? These are the packages that we'll be requiring. So just download these packages, and again, I'll push it in the README as well, so that you can again copy it from there as well. So again, guys, this is the command npm I nodemon express mongoose and mongodb. These are the packages that we'll be requiring, right? And guys, what we'll be doing is in the session is, right, we'll be trying to build each and every functionality, right, as the time limits to us. And if we are not able to do so, that it is totally fine. I'll just push all the code with complete functionality into a new branch, right? So don't worry about that as well. So anyways, we have the whole thing downloaded, right? So now let's quickly create and run our first server, right? So we will be running our very first server. So for that, we'll say const express equals to require. We'll first get the express app, right? So guys, I just talked about express as well, right? Express is basically used with Node.js to start our server, right? It basically makes our life easier for us. We can avoid using express, but generally people use express because it makes our life easier, right? And we'll be starting a server on port 8888. You can basically name it anything you want, right? So you can start the server on any port you want. So I'm using 8888. You can use 9000 or whatever you want. And we'll be creating a function called mount, right? And this will basically mount, start the server, right? And since we are using Express, what we need to do is we have to declare an app, right? And how do we do that? We basically say, just run the Express function, right? Okay. We just run the Express function and we will get our application. That's it. And we just need to pass our app into the mount function. We'll get the app over here, right? And to start the server, we'll say app.listen on port, what port you want to listen the app on, right? I want to listen it on 888888, and we'll just start the app, right? So let's just increase the font size as well. I think this should be enough. Okay. Yeah. So we have our port, we have our app, we have initialized our app via calling the Express library we just imported, and we have called the mount function with the app, and we have triggered app.listen, right? Let's quickly see and open package.json file, right? So to run our server, guys, we'll be writing a command called start, right? Yeah. So we'll be writing a command called start, and we'll be doing nodemon, right? And we'll be doing index.js, right? So we'll be using nodemon to start our index.js file, right? So nodemon will basically go through the whole index.js file and will perform the actions that we are doing over here, right? So nodemon, guys, is basically just an upgraded version of node.js, you can say. We could have done node index.js, right? Let me see where I am. CD server. I could have done node index node.js, right? So it will run a server totally, that is totally fine, right? But what I'm doing is I'm doing nodemon index.js, right? So what it will basically do is it will keep on running my server, and as I make changes on my application on my index.js file, it will rerun the server for me, right? So that's why we use nodemon instead of node. So it's just an extended version of node, right? So we don't need to run that. We just say npm start because we have defined the start script, right? Okay, so we have an error. Uh, okay, so I think we are in the same directory. Nodemon command not found. Is it installed? Let's check our package.json. Uh, okay, so we did do something wrong. So what we did was, let me just show it to you guys. So here we are in the server, guys, right? And this is our npm package. And what we actually did was, if I go cd.back, I installed the node modules and everything in my root directory, right? And not in the server directory, which basically was wrong. So let me first remove that. It's rf node modules. We don't want the package.json as well, right? So guys, just go into the server directory and install the packages that we just installed, right? npm I nodemon express mongoose mongodb, things like that, right? So install all of these things inside the server directory and not the main directory, right? Because inside this main directory we'll be having two directories. One is the server where we'll be writing our apis, and other is the react part, right? So just quickly write the particular command in server. Okay, so meanwhile it is running, we'll just copy it. I think it won't take a lot of time. And our index.js, let's just write a console log over here so that we know our server is running, right? We'll say server is running at port. Okay, so I think it is done. Now let's do npm start. It should start the server. It basically implemented this command, right? nodemon.index.js. We could have done it ourselves as well. But again, we are using npm start. Now server is running at port double it, right? It basically means our function, this was called mount, and our app started, and this console log was reached. That basically means, let's see if it has started or not. We'll say localhost double it. Okay, so let's see. And here you can see cannot get slash. But that basically means our server ran, and it is completely running over here, right? And as soon as I make some changes over here, right, in my particular application, let's say I make it not this. Let's do a console.log, save it. My server will automatically restart, right? That's what the function of nodemon is. That's why we're using nodemon and not just node.js, right? Awesome. So I hope you have uh, written down the code if you're basically coding along with me. I'll just push this code as well, right? So guys, you can see and copy the code as well. Anyways, our server started running, right? So now what I want to do is I want to see something over here on this particular page, right? So let's quickly do that as well. So for that, what we need to do is we need to define a route, right? So our server is running, everything is fine. But now we have to define a route, right? So here, what is the route? Here, the route is just slash, right? This is the home route, slash route. That's basically, it says that cannot get slash, right? And let me just push all of this stuff as well. So I'll just push it, guys. Git add, just a second, dot. Okay, so git commit minus m, starting our first server. Okay, one thing I forgot to do is I have to add a new file called .gitignore at the root so that I can just neglect node modules folder. Else node modules folder will also get pushed along, right? So just write node modules so that you're not pushing node modules to GitHub repository, right? So just add that. Also, I'll be adding a prettier RC file. You don't need to do this. I'm just doing to make our code cleaner, and indentation and everything will be fine with this, right? So don't worry about this. Don't add this prettier RC file. but add the git ignore file. Status. Okay, so I'm pushing guys. Update code. Okay. Commit my SAM. Updating code. Git push origin me. So I think we'll get the code now. Let it just push for a while. So guys, don't worry what I'm doing on the terminal. You don't have to worry about that. You just have to see what actual code is, right? What we're actually doing with Node.js and everything, right? So you'll get the code over here in the GitHub repository. Don't worry about how, if you're not aware of Git and everything, but don't worry about the commands and everything, right? Just worry about how the code is running, right? So now you have the server folder at the repo, and you have this index.js and everything, right? You don't need this node modules folder at all, right? Awesome. So just try to understand what I'm doing with the code, right? With the Node.js code. So don't worry about the Git commands and everything. Okay. So finally, our app is running, and I have pushed the code as well to basically specify, to tell the server that, hey, send some data when user tries to get the slash URL, right? So for that, what we'll do is we'll say app.use, right? We'll write the slash over here, and here we can pass a function which will get two arguments, request and response, right? And what we can do now is that we can send a response, and we can say hello world. So now basically what is happening is my server is looking out for this URL. If the user comes to this URL, it will basically run this function for me and will send this request response hello world. So let's quickly do that. And our server is running, and here you can see we get the hello world, right? So now our current server is listening for the slash URL, and we can basically make it ABC as well, and we can refresh. It won't listen for the slash URL. If I type ABC, only then it will give me a response hello world, right? So whatever URL you type over here, it will give the response for that. Awesome. So that is done. So now what we'll do is quickly, just a second, let's see. The next thing is to basically run the server, right? So let's quickly run the server and just add database to our project, right? So our server is running, everything is fine. Our URL is set /abc, and we'll keep on adding more URLs once we're there, right? First, now what we want to do is we want to add the database, right? So quickly go to cloud.mongodb.com, right? Just go to that, and there you'll be able to sign up, right? Just sign up in cloud.mongodb, right? And once you're able to sign up, what you'll have is you'll be able to create a new DB for yourself, right? So just go through the process, go to cloud.mongodb and just sign up over there, and we'll be using cloud database, right? So what it basically means is whatever data we'll be storing, it will be stored in this database, and we can see it through the website, right? So it's a cloud database. Just create a new project and write your project name, right? We'll say bucket list and create next, right? And just create the project. You don't need any permissions or anything right now. Just create the project, right? It will take a while for you to create a project, right? So just create a cloud MongoDB project. So now we have just set up our server, and now we'll just be uh, adding the database to our application, right? So here, guys, so once you will be setting up your project, you'll able be to see this particular thing. And what you need to do is you basically need to build a cluster, right? And what it will do is it will basically set up a machine for you, set up a particular database server for you guys, right? You just have to create a cluster using the free account, right? You don't need the paid version. We just set up a new account, just use whatever services you want. We'll go through AWS, and just use Mumbai because it's nearer to us. The server will be nearer to us and it will be fast. Just create a cluster, don't change anything, just do Mumbai, right? And once you have created the cluster, you'll come to this particular page, right? And this will basically take up to 3 to 5 minutes to set up your server, your database server, right? And we'll see how we can go about it once our server is set up, right? So it will take around 2 3 minutes. So don't worry about that. So in the meanwhile, it's running. Let me just put the remaining code as well. Add. Just make sure, guys, the server is running, right? On the left-hand side or wherever you want, right? On the terminal. Add URLs. Okay, so I pushed the latest code in the repo as well. So just go onto the repo, guys, and you can just find all the codes from here, right? So just go to the repo, and the latest code will be updated in the repo. Okay, fine. So now let's quickly go to our server, and here we'll create a new folder called as databases. Database, you can say, right? So here we'll be configuring our MongoDB, right? And guys, you'll see using Mongoose how easy it is to basically write your database application, right? So here at the top, what we'll be doing, we'll be getting Mongoose first. We'll do require Mongoose. So we'll import Mongoose first, right? And then what we'll basically be doing is we'll get a URI, right? And don't worry about the URI. We'll get this URI from the cluster which we just created, right? And just write the variable names, username, password, and things like that. We'll get these things again from the cluster which we just built. Okay, so don't worry about that. Password. We'll also get the cluster name as well. We'll get the cluster, and we'll also get the database name, right? DB name. So we'll get all these things once our cluster is set up, right? So this will take about 3 to 4 minutes, right? Just try to do that, guys. I hope your cluster is being set up and everything is being achieved, right? So just wait for that. It will take some time, right? So don't worry about that. Okay. So in the meanwhile, I'm answering question, guys. So just put the question if you have. Uh, Swaroop, just put npm start in your server directory, right? So this is your server directory. Inside your server, go inside the server directory and do npm start. Okay, and guys, we have a lot of frameworks and libraries out there to write your what do you say, backend, right? So Node.js we are using since it's simple and used by a lot of people out there, but you can use other frameworks and library as well. It is in Python, Java, Go, Ruby, and everything. Right? So you find frameworks and library for writing backend pretty much everywhere, right? In every language. So yes, we need to get Mongoose because it makes our lives easier, right? And you'll see in a moment, right? If you use MongoDB itself, the API which they provide is kind of difficult to understand at first, right? Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll do try catch over here. So we'll basically set up the connection over here, right? If there's an error, we'll say console.log error in connecting to MongoDB, right? And here, what we'll basically do is we'll set up a connection over here. And what we need to do is we need to do mongoose.connect. That's it. And we need to give the URI. URI is basically the URL of your database server, right? And it will have all the password, username, and everything inside that URI. So it will just connect with your cloud DB. And what we'll do is to get the database, we'll say mongoose.connection. And we'll export as well. We'll export this DB, right? Let's export this. We'll be using it in a bit. This should be module. Okay. Again, what we've done, we've just got the URI username, we'll get it. And we just call the connect function using Mongoose with that URI. It will connect MongoDB with my server, and we can just use that DB to add stuff to it or delete stuff or whatever you want. Awesome. Okay, guys. So let me just see. Cluster is still being created. It takes a while, guys. So don't worry about that, right? So we'll just export this DB and we'll import it in index.js file. So just quickly import it from index.js file. Require database, right? So we have imported DB over here as well, right? So here in a mount function, what we'll do is we'll write particular functions like db dot on. We'll basically attach listeners. So if there is an error, it will throw me the error, right? It will give me the error, and we'll see if some error occurs, right? If there's an error, it will just console dot uh, let's say error for me, uh, error starting error, or we can say connecting to Mongo, right? And we can also write the error. And once the DB has started, again, we'll attach another listener. What will basically do is it will basically just keep on listening to the connection, right? So if there's a connection error, it will throw me this error and it will write this error into my console, right? And this should be open. Once the connection is set up successful, it will give me this particular line. So we'll say successfully connected to MongoDB, right? Okay, so yeah, this is basically the code. I just push it so that you guys can copy it or see. Commit minus uh, connect to MongoDB. Okay, so I think I've not pushed it. So it should have been pushed, and my cluster is still being set up. It takes a while, guys. So don't worry about that, right? So let me just quickly explain about MongoDB, guys. So what is MongoDB? MongoDB is a database where you store data in JSON-like structure, right? So what is JSON? This is JSON, right? Here we can say we have, let's say, users, and this will be an array of different users, right? So array of objects. So here will be name, right? This will be name, and this could be anything. And here we'll have multiple users, right? So generally, this is how we store data in MongoDB, right? So we have multiple users, and it is basically in an array, right? This is how generally a NoSQL database stores its data, right? And this particular thing, right? Just like you have your tables in SQL-based databases, right? So you have a users table, and inside that you have multiple rows, right? Similarly, we have this users, and this is called as collections, right? This users, the top level thing will be called as collections, and inside this you'll have all the data, which is called as documents, right? This particular is one document. This particular user is another document, right? So we have all of these documents inside the user collection. That basically means inside the users table, if you're basically thinking about SQL-based databases, you have all of these users rows, right? So it's as simple as that. And we can have multiple tables in SQL-based databases. Similarly, we can have multiple collections in MongoDB as well. Right? This is just the difference between NoSQL and the SQL databases. It's just kind of an object kind of a thing, right? So how we will be storing our data? So we will be storing our data. We'll be creating a collection of bucket list items, and here it will be an array of multiple JSON objects. Here we'll store title, description, image, and things like that, right? But we'll be creating only one collection called bucket list items. Okay, awesome. So I think now it should be done. Still just taking time. Anyways. Okay, guys, so let's quickly do one more thing now. So to basically set up our database, what we actually need is we need to create models, right? So if you're aware of the MVC structure in the MVC pattern, basically of writing our applications, you see M is basically for model, V is for view, C is for controllers, right? What is a model? Model is basically the way you store your data, right? How you store your data. V, view is basically what you can see on the front end side, on the client side, right? And C is controller, where basically you can write all of your logic, right? So here inside this particular function, right, this will go inside my controllers, right? Because all of the logic to handle this particular route will go inside that, right? That will basically be my controllers. Okay, so let's quickly set up models as well. We'll write models, and here we'll only have only one model for now, bucket list items, right? We create a new file, bucket list item, item.js, right? There's a particular way where you have to define what fields you'll have and things like that for your model, right? So let's do that. So, okay. So first we'll import few functions from Mongoose itself, Mongoose, and here we create the schema, right? So just we have your schema in your SQL base. Here we define the schema for our bucket list item schema, right? And here we just call the function use schema, and here we specify an object with things we want, right? So we want a title, right? And this should basically be of type string, right? And this should be required as true. And we have an image, type should be string. This is not required, so we don't need to do anything, right? Similarly, we have description and tags, right? So for a bucket list, you have to have a title, right? We'll have an image as well, we'll have a description as well, and we'll have tags, right? So for example, one particular bucket list item can belong to a tag of travel. Other could be like habits or things like that, right? Or books or things like that. This will be an array of string. So we'll do something like this, array of string, right? So tags will be something like this. It can be travel, it can be, let's say, books, or whatever you want to name that, right? Those are the tags. Okay, so this is it, and we'll say const bucket list item, and we'll just call model function, and what we want to name this particular collection, we'll be naming it bucket list item, right? And we'll give the schema. So what it will do is, this is the schema, and this particular thing will help us to create, read, and delete and things like that for a particular bucket list item, right? We're just creating a model called bucket list item. This will create a collection for me in the database, right? And we'll see that in a moment as well. So let's just export this as well. Okay, so we have exported this as well. Let's see if this is ready. Yep. So here you can see, guys, it is totally ready for me, right? Okay. So now let's get started, right? So now what we have to do is we have to get the password and everything, right? So we'll get that. Just a moment. Let's go to index.js file. Here we want username, password, cluster, DB name, etc. Right? So go to database access, guys. We'll create a user first, right? Go to database access. We'll create a new database into the user, right? We'll add a new user to database. We'll create user name admin. We'll generate a secure password. Let's copy this name, paste it in username. Let's copy this password and paste it over here in password field. And I think we are pretty much done. Add user, we click add user. So for this database, we can use read, write to this particular database using this particular user, right? Let's go to clusters. And now we'll get the URL, right? Click on connect. Once you click on connect, first of all, allow access from anywhere. This should basically good for development purposes so that you can hit from localhost, right? You can manipulate a database from localhost. We'll do add IP address. It should be done, right? Now we'll choose the connection method. I want to add this connection in my web application. So I'll just click on this. This is the URL. Just copy this particular URL inside this URI field. And here you can see this is the admin username. Just replace it with the username. Username over here, and we'll replace this with the password, right? And here you can see this is the cluster name, right? up until here. This is my cluster. So I'll just remove all of this, and what I'll do is I will use the cluster variable instead, cluster.mongodb.net, right? And this is my first database is the name, DB name. So let's remove this as well. Awesome. So everything is pretty much done, right? So I think let's go to this particular and see if we have, yep. So here you can see that it basically gives me this message successfully connected to MongoDB, right? It basically means when we came to this index.js server, it is listening for error. If an error will occur, it will give me an error in console. It says when a connection is open, when it's established, just give this particular message successfully connected to MongoDB, right? So now we have connected to MongoDB successfully. It gives me these warnings, right? Cannot do this, etc. Just read the warnings, guys. It basically says, for example, pass this option to Mongo client.connect, right? So how we can do that? To avoid the warnings, go to database index.js, and here we are doing mongoose.connect, right? Here we'll pass that option. We say no, use new URL parser equals to true. This is a MongoDB thing. So since MongoDB version is upgraded, it basically says that use the new parser, right? Because Mongoose supports the earlier parser as well. Anyways, so here we can see there's another over here, right? Another option over here, use unified topology. So I'll just add that as well. Use unified topology, true. And using that, all of that should be gone, these warnings. Here's this server is running at port 8888 and successfully connected to MongoDB. Awesome. So our server is connected to the MongoDB database, right? And to show to you guys, let's quickly do one thing. I have exported it over here as well. And now I have to do is import it over here. We'll say require, just a second, okay. So we'll say require bucket list item. So we'll get the bucket list model which we just created, right? Bucket list item. I think this is the name, right? This should be the name. This is the name, right? Bucket list item. We just get it from this file and we export it straight away from here. Okay, because let me just push this code, right? Okay, so it says bucket list item did not find the file. We are doing const bucket list equals to model schema. This should be schema. First of all, bucket list item. We are doing exports as well. So here you can see, guys. Here you can find the error, right? Whatever error we'll get, we'll be able to find it over here. Okay, so it is basically saying that cannot find this module because what we're doing wrong is it is inside the models folder. And now let's see. Yep, our server is now running and successfully connected, right? Git add dot, git commit -m, add MongoDB models. Push origin main. So now you can get this code from the repo as well, right? So awesome, guys. So now what I'll do is I'll use this bucket list.item item model to create one inside our database, right? So let's do that. So what we'll say is over here, we'll import that model from database folder, bucket list item, and here we'll do bucket list.create. And what we have to do is to add any data to the database, we just have to call the create method on the model, right? And whatever the fields which we defined over here in our model, right? Bucket list item, we need title, image, description, and tags. And title is required, right? So let's add these fields. Title, let's just add title for now. Go to Japan. Let's add this, right? And when we hit the ABC URL, it should add the item to our database. So let's check if it works. Okay, so let's go to ABC once more. I hit ABC and return hello world. That basically means it did not give any error. I didn't get any error in the server as well, right? So let me just remove this and let's go to the database, hit collections. Let's see the collections, and it should ideally have our collections. It takes a while to load. So it's retrieving the database, and here you can see bucket list item. So this is my collection name, which I just made, and here you can see tags, title, and things like that. Tags, title, array, right? So whatever I'm basically passing, it will basically add only that particular stuff, right? Okay. Okay, guys. So I think this is basically how we create a database in a database, right? In an item in a database. Okay. So what we'll basically do right now is quickly just create one database, one API, right? And earlier I basically suggested that what is an API? An API is basically that does not send you an HTML page, right? Here what we're sending, here we're sending a string, right? We're not sending an HTML page, but we're sending a string, right? So what we'll do is we'll send JSON, right? How do we send JSON? We'll just do response dot status, and status will be 200, right? Obviously, once request is successful, we'll send the status as 200, right? We'll do JSON, and here we can send whatever data we want, right? Send data hello world. Save it, and okay. Let's see in our application. Let's say refresh, and I think we have to remove response or send over here. I think server will get started. It will automatically get restarted once we are done, right? Okay. So here you can see we have hello world data, right? And one more object should be created over here. If you refresh this page, you'll get one more object which is added into the database, right? Okay, so using this create method, I'm able to basically create the item, right? So to get the item, what I can do is const item equals to await, and I'll just do an async over here. So what I'm doing is I will wait for this create command to basically get finished, and then it will basically return the item, right? So I think it gives me an error. Okay. So let's try seeing function. I think we are doing something wrong using the arrow function. Okay, it's fine. So I'll just return the item once it's created. Let's save it, and we should get the item created in the JSON object as well, right? So let's quickly go back to our URL and let's change this URL as well, right? We'll say bucket list add, right? And we'll hit this URL. And once I hit bucket list add, it takes some time and returns this item with title go to Japan and ID and V, right? So this is basically how we can create an item in our database, right? And if I refresh the database, you can see 3 objects over here, right? This is basically how we do it. And you can now write multiple functions to basically update, delete, and things like that, right? So here we have seen how we can actually write some data onto our database, right? Let me just push this code as well. Okay, so I will push this code, git commit -m, create a bucket list item. Okay, so I think now you'll be able to access this as well in your main branch in my repo, right? So just go to the repository and you'll have the update code, right? Okay, and what I'll do is one more thing. git checkout minus B, right? And basically create a new branch, uh, updated code. So guys, in this branch, you'll basically push each and every functionality. So once you're done with the session, you can just go through the branch and just check out the whole code of creating, deleting, and everything. Right? Just check out the whole code. So we have basically successfully connected our database to the server, right? And now we have added. Now we know how we can add stuff to the database as well, right? Okay. So this was just like a small glimpse of Node.js and Express, how you can add your MongoDB, how you can connect the MongoDB to your database server, right? And what we're doing is we're using the cloud MongoDB function because it gives us the functionality, a URL basically for the MongoDB, right? Yes, definitely, guys. I just give you a little brief about this. So what we're just really doing is we're just using Express over here at the top, right? And we're having a port. We're just initializing our app, Express app, using the app Express function. And here we're mounting our particular application, right? And what we're doing then is we connected our database, right? Our database we configured in the index.js file in our database folder, where we basically got the URI from the cloud.mongodb.com, which gave us admin password and everything, right? Then we connected our application with the database. So here you can see we are doing mongoose.connect, and this is the URL of our database server, right? So once you had the connection, what we did was we defined a model, right? What is a model? The way of keeping or storing the data, right? So we basically store the data in this title, image, description, tags, and things like that, right? And using this model, I can now create, right? So then what we had gone to index.js file and defined a route. Basically, my server is listening for this route, app.use bucket list /add, right? It is actually listening for this route. So whenever someone visits this route, what will happen is it will add this particular item, and we're using the model, right? Here we import the model, we're using the model to create the item, bucket list item, right? And what we're doing is we have actually created an API, right? So after item is created, we're waiting, right? We're using the await keyword. We're waiting over here. Once the item is created, then we're returning JSON object, which we can then utilize in our React, Angular, or whatever app we want, right? So it returns the newly created item. This is how we're actually creating the item, right? And why I was talking about Mongoose, since you've created this model, right? Now you have the access of creation, deletion, and everything using the functionalities, right? I just quickly go to the Mongoose website, and here you can see on model, you can perform different functions. You can create, you can delete, you can do things like that, right? So here, if you go to the Mongoose documentation, here you can see we are defining a schema like this, like just we did, right? And if I go to the query part, so here you do not have to write a query like you did for MySQL, right? You have to write SQL queries for that. You don't have to write queries like that. Here you just have to need to define a model. And here you can see I can do delete many, I can do delete one, I can do find by ID, find by ID and delete, find by ID and remove, and things like that, right? These are the things, these are the functions that we can actually call on our model, right? Here we're calling bucket list.create, right? And create should also be somewhere in the middle over here, right? This is basically how Mongoose gives us the power. Okay. Okay, guys. So if you have any other questions, guys, please write it on the chat. And async await. So guys, what we're doing is we're awaiting. Await basically means that wait until this operation is completed, right? Because this is an asynchronous operation, right? If I did not press await, what will happen is, if I did not write await over here, what will happen is this operation will be performed in the background. Once we hit the URL, right, we'll come to this line. This operation will be performed in the background, and we'll quickly return the JSON like this over here, even before this operation is completed. That's why we don't have the item if we do not write await over here. That's why I am writing await, because what it will do is it will wait for this operation to get completed. Once it's get completed, only then we are returning the JSON, right? And if you're using await keyword, you also have to use async over here in this function, telling JavaScript that, hey, this is an asynchronous function. Okay. So this is just a way to send basically JSON data to your front end, right? Response is whatever. This request is basically when someone hits your URL, right? So this Chrome browser is hitting this particular URL. So all of this stuff will be in this request object, and what you want to send in the response will be in this response object, right? So that's why I'm basically saying that here in the response, set the status as 200. That basically means request successfully completed, and then send the JSON as this data, right? This data should be sent in JSON. If I click this again, it will get to this URL. It will call this function, create the item. It will set the status as 200, and it will give me this JSON, right? And if I open the console also, you'll be able to see that the request is successful, right? You don't have any errors. If I click here, you can see, let's do all. And here add request is basically successful with status as 200, right? Status is 200, which we set, right? That's what the request is. So yes, Kevin, this is what we are actually doing. We're accessing MongoDB remotely, right? From our Node.js application, right? This is what we're basically doing. We're accessing MongoDB from our remote Node.js server, right? So you can basically use the URI, which we use in our index.js file to access MongoDB pretty much anywhere or any application you want, right? So this was basically the backend part. Here I've told you how you can basically write your delete functionalities, update functionalities, and things like that as well, right? So let me just open the URL just a second, guys. Hmm. Okay, so guys, definitely this is just a glimpse of what we will teach you in the particular course, which I just showed you at the very beginning. And here in the FutureSkills Prime platform, you can get multiple courses on pretty much anything you want. If you want to learn about artificial intelligence, big data analytics, blockchain, or pretty much anything, you can get all the courses from here, right? And our particular course from Coding Ninjas will be in the web mobile development section where you can get the access of it, right? So guys, what I just showed to you is just a small glimpse of what you'll be learning, right? So guys, this is a very big course. If I go inside the course, here you can see it's pretty much like, I think 49 to 40 to 50 hours course. And that particular course will basically uh, last a very long time, and you learn a lot of stuff from that particular course, right? Because it's a very huge course. And what I showed to you was just a glimpse of it, how you can basically manage your backend data from that, right? So it's just a glimpse of that. Uh, yeah. So just go and enroll from this particular course if you want to. Definitely you get to learn more. What I showed to you is just a small glimpse. And obviously I totally understand that almost not everyone will get it, because if you're learning it for the very first time, it will be very hard for you. That's why all these courses are created for you, so that we go step by step and learn each and everything. And we cannot cover each and everything in the same session, right? In one session, right? And I'll just push all the code, guys, if I haven't already. So if you have any question, guys, just definitely put it in the chat box. I can take the questions from now on. Okay, so guys, I just basically told you how to use await and async, guys. So this is just a JavaScript concept. This is not Node.js specific concept, right? So you have to learn about JavaScript as well, first of all, and then you move on to Node.js part, right? That's why in the course, in the full stack course, we teach JavaScript first, where you get to know about everything about async, await promises, and all of the JavaScript things, and then only you move on to Node.js, right? And I can totally understand if you don't get this, right? But here you can just get an idea of how this particular course will help you, where you can just, I mean, build pretty much any application you want, right? Be it a social network website like Facebook, an e-commerce website like like Flipkart or Amazon, or pretty much anything you can build, right? Once you know about all of these technologies. What I have done today is just touched upon a few technologies and showed you the power of those technologies, which you can actually learn and use in your daily life, in your projects as well. And definitely, guys, on the GitHub page, here you can see I have the upgraded code, right? And don't worry about the whole thing. If you are like curious to learn more, what you can do is from now on, you can just follow the documentation of Mongoose to basically write the delete functionality as well, or the update functionality, right? And okay, so few of you are asking and still confused about async and await, guys. Async is basically a JavaScript thing, right? This is not a Node.js thing, right? If I remove async over here, I can't use await inside this. JavaScript will give me an error. I cannot use await keyword inside a normal function. I have to make it async, right? And what await does is await will return a promise, right? If you're using this await keyword inside a function, this asynchronous function will return a promise, right? And again, guys, promises and everything is basically explained very well in the course. You can go and learn more about that in that course, right? Await is just a way of saying that wait for this operation to get completed, right? And once this operation is get completed, then only we move on to the next line of this, where we return the JSON data, right? So I hope you have got something out of it and have learned something from this particular session, because again, in this particular short session, we cannot cover everything, guys, right? And I totally understand you guys if you are like, if this all of this is very new to you, right? I can totally understand that the purpose of this particular session was just to show you guys that how you can basically learn these technologies and create pretty much anything, right? Once you have the access of database, once you know how to manipulate it, you can pretty much make any application you want, right? Definitely you learn a lot of stuff. This is just a beginning, right? You'll be able to learn about how to basically work with chatting engines, work with different types of technology that are available to us in web, right, on the internet. So definitely this is just a very small and short intro of what you will be learning in the course and how powerful this thing is, right? Once you get to know all of these technologies, you can pretty much build anything you want for your own good as well as for a public's good, right? So you can totally do anything with this, right? So again, just a summary of it. What we did in this session was just we created a Node.js server using the Express framework. And obviously, I'm totally with you guys if you're not able to understand each and everything. But again, the code is on GitHub. Just go through the code and you can go through the documentation as well of expression in Node and see how this is all working, right? And if you also want to get a deep understanding of the course, of this particular thing of how Node.js and full stack development work, then definitely get to the course and learn more about it, right? So this is all of these resources are for you guys, and all the code will be updated on this particular GitHub repo. So you can just clone the GitHub repo as it is stored, or you can download the code from it. And as I suggested that in the new branch updated code, you'll find all the latest code, right? All the working application, you'll find that in this particular branch. I'll push the branch. I'm not sure if I pushed the branch or not, but I'll push the branch, everything over here. And you'll also find in the instructions the links to the course, right? I'll add the links to the course as well in the README file over here at the bottom. Also, how to run your application, right? I'll put each and everything inside this README file after the session. Okay. So obviously, Gayatri, we could not cover each and everything in this particular session, but definitely I'll put the code for you guys. I'll write each and everything on how to run your code, right? So what you need to do is I'll mention each and every step in the README file to run both the front end as well as the server together, right? And you'll be able to run with one command, and you can just open the front end and play around with it, right? Once I'm done. So I'll update. Don't worry about that. Wait for today. After the session, I'll update each and everything by tonight so that you guys can play around with this and see how the server is written. And you can just go through the code as well. And I'll write the comments as well in the code so that you guys know how the code is functioning and working, right? So just go through this particular repository and download the code, go through it, play around with it, see how we talked about things in this particular session, and learn more about it. Okay, guys? So link of code, guys, I shared earlier, but I'll share again the chart itself. So I've shared the code again, guys. I'm using VS Code editor. You can use pretty much any editor you want, but I hope you've got something from this particular session, and I hope this session basically makes you more curious to learn these sort of technologies and uh, enhance your particular knowledge, right? Okay, awesome. So let me just go to the questions if we have any questions at all. Uh, okay, guys. So for Windows users, if you're using Windows, so just add. Let's go to the. I think you were using CMD or something like that, right? Just download Bash. So Bash is similar to what we generally use in Mac and Unix-based systems. Download Bash, you'll be able to perform any command which is performed on Linux or Unix systems on your Bash command or Bash prompt, right? Just download Bash. So guys, once you learn React, you'll be able to, yes, I'm talking about Git Bash. And once you learn React, you'll be able to transform to React Native pretty quickly, right? Because React and React Native is similar in terms of syntax and understanding, right? That's the whole process of or whole motive of building React. So you learn React once, and you can apply it to build mobile applications, web applications, even AR, VR applications, right? You can build that as well. Mm, okay, awesome. So I think, guys, that pretty much covers everything. And I think let's wrap the session up now. And I hope you have all the link for the code base. I'll add all the links to the PPT and everything, whatever resources I've used in the session as well. I'll add the resources in that particular README file as well in the GitHub repo. Okay, so guys, React is just basically front-end part, right? Which I just showed to you. Whatever you see on the browser, Facebook, all that front-end is basically built on React, right? Which you build server, or in this particular session, that is how you basically build APIs. We build APIs and connected with React to basically make a full-fledged application, right? That's how Facebook is built. Facebook is written in React, and its server is written in PHP, and some part is written in Node.js as well. So Facebook has a lot of services out there, right, which are written in Node.js as well as PHP. Okay, so awesome, guys. So I think that's pretty much it. Let me stop the screen sharing and close the editor. Okay, awesome, guys. So I hope you have understood something, and it has made you more curious to basically learn more about these technologies and become a full stack developer. So, okay, guys. So, uh, let's wrap the session, guys.
Thank you, Aakash. It was an amazing and a very insightful session. Could see that from the messages that we were receiving from the audience. Also, thank you, audience. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a great learning session for you all. A lot of people were asking for the recording of the session, which will be emailed to all the attendees shortly. And also, please subscribe to the FutureSkills Prime YouTube channel for more such sessions. The link to the course and YouTube both are there in the chat section. You could access it from there. Thank you, everyone.